What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a special NBS AFC preview show. Obviously, we've got the regular season starting up here. The long wait is over, right? We are just 2 days away from the beginning of the season, and I am joined today by a couple of other NBS sports writers and analysts who are going to help me tell you everything you need to know about the AFC this season. A lot of things we got to talk about, so let's just go ahead, bring them in here. Obviously, we have Keith joining us today. Keith, how you doing?
What's up?
Good to see you, man. Good to see you. We missed you on No Huddle last week, but you will be with us tomorrow. So
I am on tomorrow for sure.
Super excited for that. And also tomorrow, right after No Huddle ends, obviously, you will have the Nuts and Bolts Sports NFC preview show. So make sure you guys check out both of those shows tomorrow. And let's also go ahead and bring in our other Nuts and Bolts sports writer, that is Edwin.
What is going on, everybody? What's going on?
What's going on? So happy to have you guys with me here. Super excited about this season. So let's go ahead and start, okay? AFC. If we're talking about the AFC, you have to start with the obvious, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the toast of this division. They're clearly the best team in this division. Am I wrong in thinking that, Keith?
No, I don't think you're wrong in thinking they're the best team in the division. I think teams are catching up, but really not catching up so fast that it really is going to matter for the next couple of years. The Bills are getting better. The Browns, I think, are on the right path. The Titans even got better signing or getting I just lost my train of thought. Lost his that receiver from Atlanta. There are teams that are in a position to start challenging them. But as Monty just said, they have the 7th-ranked offensive line, which was their downfall in the Super Bowl. Mahomes was not 100% healthy. He had nowhere to go. If they can stay healthy, which is the case for almost any other team, but especially for them, if they stay healthy, especially their offensive line, there's not a whole lot defenses are going to be able to do.
Edwin, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually agree with Keith here. I think the Chiefs are the team that you have to beat to get to the Super Bowl at this point. Yes, I am really high on the likes of the Browns and the Bills and what they've done this offseason to strengthen their squads in hopes of challenging the Chiefs. Really more so the Browns, because I feel like they're the second best team in the AFC at the moment. But when it comes down to everything, it has to be decided between whether or not Baker Mayfield can get the job done, and that's what I think separates them. Patrick Mahomes is obviously that guy, the guy that you would want to rely upon in crunch situations in the past, and he has done that in the past. So for me, the Chiefs, even though they might not be as balanced as the previous two teams mentioned, yes, they have a better offensive line this upcoming season. That was a big deciding factor in Super Bowl last year. But you still have Patrick Mahomes, you still have the offensive talent around the team. That's going to bode well for them this season. I expect them to be a 15-win team this upcoming season, and I expect them to definitely claim first place in the AFC.
So I agree. I think, like I said, when you're talking about the AFC, you have to start with the Chiefs, right? They have won this division the past 2 years, were before that lost in the AFC Conference Championship to New England, right? So they are hands and away the best team in this division. 15 wins is a lot for a prediction. I was gonna say, Monty, definitely, I definitely agree with you there, Monty, in a 17-game season. But I think crazier things have happened before, right? But so we agree, they did a lot revamping that offensive line, which basically was the only weakness this team really had, at least on the offensive side of the ball last year, right? Their defense, I still think, is a little shaky. I would have liked to have seen a little bit of a better performance from their defense in that Super Bowl. But we know that the Chiefs win with offense, right? They are just going to absolutely bombard you. So that being said, who's the biggest threat to the Chiefs? There are a lot of good teams in this conference, a lot of good teams in their division alone. Who's their biggest threat? Edwin?
So I'm gonna, stick with my pick here. I'm gonna say the Browns, as I mentioned before. I just like how well balanced this team is, and if I'm being honest, when it comes to the Browns, I think that there's only two teams that are well balanced in each conference. That's the Browns, and for the NFC, that would be the Rams for me. But we'll talk about it another day. But you have Odell Beckham coming back from injury. He should be a big bonus. And you saw Baker kind of figure out the offense as he got injured, and spread the ball around to his receivers, Peoples-Jones, Jarvis Landry, rely on Austin Hooper at times. So I'm looking for that to continue. I'm looking for the running game to continue to be a great factor in the offense. Nick Chubb and obviously Kareem Hunt coming back. And the defense, yes, the defensive line has Myles Garrett, has Jadeveon Clowney coming into the fold. So they should get some pressure. And the cornerback situation is a little, it's average. It's okay. Still high on Denzel Ward, obviously, but as a whole unit, I think the defense is going to be solid next year. So when I look at those factors and I say, well, if you have a head coach, Stefanski last year, who was the coach of the year, and he has been a big help in the development of Baker Mayfield and what he has done to elevate this team. I think they're the best team in the AFC North. They will win the division, and they will be the biggest threat to the Chiefs coming. So the first game, it will be kind of iffy because the first game was week 1. We get that. But, looking at the whole entire season and how things may play out, I think when it comes to crunch time, it'll be the Chiefs and the Browns in the AFC Championship game. Last year was kind of a disappointment for the Browns, but this year might be a different story.
Keith, how about you?
I got to go with the Browns as well. If you look at the defensive side of the ball first, if you want to really compare them to the Chiefs, I don't think you can count on as masterful of a defensive performance in a Super Bowl by the Bucs too many times against the Chiefs, especially with all the injuries they had on the offensive line. But if there is a team capable in the AFC of doing that, it's the Browns with the rushers that they have and Myles Garrett and the Jadeveon Clowney. But really, when it comes to the Browns, I think they're the best suited team offensively that can go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, with Kareem Hunt, with Nick Chubb, with Jarvis Landry, with OBJ coming back, with Peoples-Jones as well. I'm not going to say they can outscore the Chiefs. I don't think there's any team in the league that can outscore the Chiefs. But if there's any team that can capitalize on the slow starts that the Chiefs are known to have and just get too far out front for the Chiefs to have one of their famous comebacks like we saw in the Super Bowl, that didn't happen because they just fell behind too much. Yeah. The Browns are capable of doing that. Like I said, you can't count on the defense too much because there's no defense that can consistently game in and game out stop the Chiefs. You got to have an offense that can be able to take advantage of the mistakes that the Chiefs defense is known to make. And I think the Browns are the team that are best.
Oh, whoops. Sorry, that was my fault. Go ahead, finish your point, Keith.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think the Browns offensively are who can go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs and capitalize on the defensive mistakes that the Chiefs are prone to make. Now, I don't think the Chiefs' defense is bad. The Chiefs' defense perfectly complements what the offense does. They take advantage of situations. They're allowed to be more risky because they have someone who can come back from 24, 28 points in a quarter, like Patrick Mahomes. They look bad in the Super Bowl, but a lot of that, honestly, is Tom Brady calls. They didn't play any differently. They just got called on a lot of things they weren't getting called on in the season. It's their fault for not adjusting to that, but I don't expect them to look as bad as they did in the Super Bowl as they will be all season.
So it's interesting that you both go Browns. You all know where my allegiances lie when it comes to football. But while I am a Steeler fan, I try not to be biased. And I understand that the Browns, I agree with Edwin. The Browns are the best team in the AFC North, and this is their division to lose, right? Like, they should win this division. However, And maybe it is because I am still holding on to the idea of him making a comeback and being the great quarterback that we once saw him to be. The Indianapolis Colts, to me, are the biggest threat if Carson Wentz can be Carson Wentz. And because I look at the Colts, right, and he basically now has everything that he didn't have in Philadelphia. Like, it's always funny to me when people try to compare Carson Wentz to some of the other quarterbacks that, were drafted around him, or some of the other young quarterbacks that you would probably compare him to. Because one of the things that I always bring up is that when you think about, his supporting cast compared to some of the other guys that, you would compare him to, he's easily had the worst, right? Like, you think about it, his best running backs have been Miles Sanders. His best wide receivers really have been his tight ends in Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, because Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson could never stay on the field. He had an offensive line that was always banged up, and now he's in Indianapolis with a good offensive line, an offensive coordinator or a head coach who, when he was the offensive coordinator in Philly, he absolutely flourished, had some of his best years, has a good running game with Jonathan Taylor, and he has a great defense. They have everything that they need to be able to compete with the Chiefs. I think they have a great defense that can slow that offense down. I think they have an offense that can take advantage of the Chiefs' defense. To me, it's the Colts. Why am I wrong?
Oh my goodness! You see, when it comes to the Colts, I look at the factors of first them getting past the Tennessee Titans, because I don't believe that, even though they are a well-balanced team, yes, I really question the health of Carson Wentz and how he can be available throughout the whole entire season. And, whether or not he will be, the backup job would probably go to Jacob Eason or Sam Ehlinger. I don't really believe in those two guys getting the job done anyway. So it's pretty much, as you said before, it's riding on Carson Wentz and what he can do to sort of take this team to the next step. Now, they were a good team last year, Phillip Rivers, in his last season, and they actually moved the ball really well against the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. But I feel like right now it's the Tennessee Titans division to lose. And if they can't win the division, then there's no reason for me to believe that they can compete in the AFC. Especially, I don't think they're a better team than Buffalo. I don't think they're a better team than the Browns, the Chiefs. And right now, I'm actually putting my bread more so on the Titans getting the job done and winning the division. So I see all these factors, and I say, yes, they will be a playoff team when push comes to shove. But when it comes to actually competing, I don't think they have that extra factor that lets me know they have a chance of getting out of the AFC this year and actually getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think at the end of last season, my gut was to say that the Colts are going to be much better because Carson Wentz is back with Frank Reich. But already, where there's been actual injury or COVID this preseason, Carson Wentz is missing time. And you couple that with the fact that one of the big pieces of that offense, T.Y. Hilton, is also going to miss a lot of time. I think they're just going to have – I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they're going to have too much trouble getting off the ground to start the season. They'll make a big push at the end of the season, but I don't think that this year they will be a big threat to the Chiefs. I think next year it will be a lot better once they can get all their pieces in place and hopefully stay healthy, but not this season.
I hear you. Like I said, and maybe it is just because for me, it seems like Indianapolis is just tailor-made for a comeback for Carson Wentz, and maybe I am buying too much into that. Maybe Carson Wentz isn't that guy who should have won an MVP a couple of years ago had he not gotten injured. Maybe I'm still holding on to that fantasy. But we've talked a lot about the Chiefs. I do want to talk about the rest of that division because I think very quietly the AFC West is a very competitive division from top to bottom. Now, we know what the Chiefs are going to do. Obviously, the second team in that division that I think a lot of people are going to look to is the Los Angeles Chargers. How do we feel? Do we feel like this is early? They have obviously we know what Justin Herbert did in year one. He was absolutely phenomenal. We know that they have good pieces. They have Keenan Allen. They have Williams. They have a pretty good offensive line that did get better. They addressed it during the draft. They have a pretty good defense. Have obviously Joey Bosa. They get Derwin James back. Can he stay healthy? We'll see. I think that when Derwin is healthy, he's one of easily the 10 best defensive players in the league. But is this are people maybe is the hype for the Chargers too much? Are the Chargers maybe getting a little too much love? They do have a new head coach who, last year, I don't want to rag too much.
He was terrible. He was terrible.
Listen, there was situational problems with this team a lot, and we saw them lose a lot of games that they absolutely should not have. But is the hype around the Chargers too much? Are we putting too much stock in this Chargers team right now?
I mean, I guess it depends on how much you're expecting them to win and when you're expecting them to win. If people are expecting that this season, I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't like admitting I'm wrong, but I was completely wrong about Justin Herbert. He was way better last season than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was a reach at the time for the Chargers, but it turns out it was a perfect pick for them. The thing you have to be wary of is if there's going to be any bit of a sophomore slump with him this season, having to live up to the expectations of last season, and with people actually having more tape on him as well. They do have a lot of good pieces in place. Austin Eckler is going to be back. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. They added Jared Cook at tight end. Their defense is going to be a lot better than last season. They got rid of their biggest problem, which was their head coach. So I think they're in the position to challenge the Chiefs, like a lot of teams in the AFC. They're in a position to challenge the Chiefs down the road, but I don't think they can do that just right yet. I think future hype is completely warranted. If you're talking about them presently, I think that hype needs to be tempered down a little bit.
Okay. Edwin?
You see, with the Chargers, I love this Chargers team right now, and I'm really high on them, actually. So, yes, I agree with Keith on the point that I don't really expect them to compete for the title just yet. But make no mistake about it, this is definitely a playoff team next season, or at least this season. I love the addition of getting Lindsey from the Packers. He was a free agent. Now they get that guy to fill in at the center position. As you just mentioned before, the defense is going to be much, much better. Top 15 defense last year. Now you have a guy coming from the Rams, Staley, head coach, who has a defensive background. He should definitely elevate that play and how they execute on Sundays. And I just think the biggest factor here is Justin Herbert. Now, I'm not really too keen on the fact that he didn't play throughout the entire preseason. I thought that was kind of a mistake because he's still young. He still needs more reps. And I get it. You want to protect a young quarterback. But listen, as much reps as you can give the guy, I say you do so. And, it's 3 games preseason anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But either way, I think that this team is young. It's ready to compete for a wild card spot. I wouldn't be surprised if they do get a wild card spot because Justin Herbert is the key. And like we mentioned before, they have so many great offensive talents, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. You get Austin Eckler back. That's a big, big, big return for the team. He should help the running game. So I'm looking at all these pieces and I say, well, they should definitely be in the running for a wild card spot. I would be actually surprised if they don't make the playoffs this year. But to say they're contenders for the division right now, it's a little too soon to say so. But even dating back to last season, they did give the Chiefs a little problems here and there, especially the first game they played. That's Herbert's first start. So I like this team. I like the direction it's going in. And this will definitely be a playoff team next season, or this season for that matter.
I like the Chargers too. I do think that people are just kind of ready to anoint them a little too fast, right? Like, again, they have all of the talent, right? Like, that's not the problem there, right? But you do have a young quarterback. You do have a new head coach who this is his first time being a head coach. There's just a lot of unknowns with this Chargers team right now. But I agree, the trajectory on this team is absolutely skyrocketing, right? Like, they look like they're on a fast track to being a contender, and not just a contender in the sense of like, oh, we can make it to the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game. Like the Chargers, genuinely, I believe like the Chargers within the next 3 years are probably going to be thinking we can win a Super Bowl. Now, the other team that many people are high on their defense, we still have questions about the offense. The Denver Broncos. The Broncos, to me, and I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but I will let you guys go first. The Broncos decided to go with Teddy Bridgewater instead of Drew Lock as a starting quarterback. Is that the right move? Keith, I'll let you go ahead and take it.
How much time we got? We're for an hour, 2 hours. I don't think it was the right move. And I'm not going to be one of these Broncos fans that tries to sweet talk Drew Lock or butter him up. There were times last season that Drew Lock looked absolutely terrible. But you have to put it into perspective. There were times last season where the team itself looked absolutely terrible. And a lot of that, in my opinion, falls on Vic Fangio. He did the offense no favors last season. He did Drew Lock no favors last season. The reason why Bridgewater is starting is because Fangio does not want to lose his job. If his job was not on the line, Drew Lock would be starting. I mean, I know what I saw in the preseason. There was nothing that I saw from Bridgewater that says he is going to make this team better than they were last season. What's going to make this team better than they were last season is a healthy defense. One in a preseason that didn't give up a touchdown all of the preseason. And that has nothing to do with Teddy Bridgewater. Drew Lock, I think, unfairly takes a lot of the blame for the poor coaching of Vic Fangio from last season. And even if you look in the preseason, Teddy Bridgewater got way better coaching from Fangio than Drew Lock got all of last season. Fangio going for it on fourth down or going for it for touchdown instead of taking a point. He looked way better and took more risk with Bridgewater than he gave the benefit of the doubt for Lock last season. It just doesn't seem like the move to make if you want Lock to be your quarterback of the future. We know Bridgewater is not. He is a good replacement guy, a good bridge guy, but if you're looking to build a team that's going to win a championship, and I'm not even saying Drew Lock is that guy, but it's definitely not Teddy Bridgewater either.
All right, Edwin.
I love this move. I do love this call. I 100% agree with the move of starting Teddy Bridgewater, and here's why. Yes, I agree with Keith on the point that Vic Fangio wants to win now, and he wouldn't make this call if he wasn't on the hot seat at the moment. And Drew Lock has been, obviously had a bad team last year, but his performance has been kind of a shambles, very inconsistent. And yes, that was partly due to poor coaching as well. We've seen that in the past with other quarterbacks. But for me, I don't think that Drew Lock is ready to lead this team to being at least competitive. And I've seen that with Teddy Bridgewater. Like we don't. I feel like people have had a niche to underappreciate who Bridgewater is as a QB. And yes, he is a good stopgap option, but I feel like he's more than that. We don't go 5-0 with the New Orleans Saints when Drew Brees goes out, and that's not, you call that a fluke. It's not a fluke at all, right? Last year was a little bit differently with the Carolina Panthers, but you have to remember the team wasn't really good at itself. Didn't have Christian McCaffrey. The offensive line was pretty terrible. Defense couldn't really stop anybody at that point. And I look at Teddy Bridgewater now and I see, well, yes, he did benefit with some coaching from Vic Fangio this offseason, but I feel like he definitely did outplay Drew Lock in the preseason, whether or not that matters, but it obviously did matter because he's starting at the moment. And if the Broncos want to win now, they have to, or they at least should have went with the move of starting Bridgewater. And he, to me, is the best option at the moment. I don't really think that this team is going to compete at a higher level. I think they're a good, solid team in terms of them not being pushed over every weekend and, being run over by any dominant team. They're going to be tough to beat at sometimes. But, Teddy Bridgewater, he's a veteran. and has proven in the past that if you give him talent, he can at least make the most of it and take you to the playoffs. We can't forget about his time with the Vikings, that Pro Bowl caliber year he had, and what he's done in the past. So I like Bridgewater. I like him being the starter at the moment. He does give them the best chance to win. And Vic Fangio, if he does want to keep his job, Bridgewater is the only solution. It can be Drew Lock at this point.
Okay. Can I give my conspiracy theory?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I agree that Vic Fangio did this because it's the safer move, right? But I don't think it's just the safer move for this year because Bridgewater isn't, Bridgewater is a known commodity. And again, I don't want to disrespect Teddy Bridgewater because I do like him, but let's just be honest. He's a tier 4 quarterback. What do I mean by that? I have 5 tiers when I talk about any players, right? You have tier 1 is your elite, tier 2 are your greats, tier 3 is really good, tier 4 is average, and tier 5 is everyone else. He's tier 4. He's an average starting quarterback. You're not going to win any significant – you're not going to have any significant amount of success with Teddy Bridgewater as your starting quarterback, right? We know that. We know what Teddy Bridgewater is. He's a known commodity. We're still trying to figure out if Drew Lock is a guy, right? Like, we don't know. Like, we've seen flashes, but then we've also seen some bad. Now, here's my theory. The Broncos are doing this because the worst thing in the world for them would have been if Drew Lock came out and lit it up this year, and then they had to make a decision at the end of next season. Do we go with Drew Lock, who's younger, talented, but still, we're still trying to figure out about him, or because I'm a firm believer that at the end of this season, Aaron Rodgers is on his way out of the door, and the number one spot that I keep hearing his name linked to is Denver. I'm fully on this idea that they are starting Teddy for the sole fact that they won't have to make that decision, because I believe the worst thing in the world for them would be if Drew Lock comes in and let's say Drew Lock leads them to like a 10-7 record. They go, hell, even win a playoff game. And now they have a decision to make. Do we move on from the young guy, or do we bring in Aaron Rodgers, who granted is great, but we may only get 3 years out of him? Am I crazy?
Well, one thing that is not a conspiracy is that Denver does not like to pay players. I mean, you can go down a list of people that they've let walk, from Calais Campbell to Shaq Barrett to Philip Lindsay, and that's just recent history. I think for sure they don't want to be put in a position to where they have to choose between Drew Lock and someone like Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to come to Denver. To be honest, I kind of went crazy when his demand to stay in Green Bay was Randall Cobb. Like, if that's what you really want, then you deserve everything that you get from that team. Like, that's just stupid. But I think it's clear at this point they don't think Drew Lock is the future. They don't think Teddy Bridgewater is the future. So in my eyes, you might as well start Drew Lock, because if he's going to look bad, you can bench him. Then you can just release him. But if he looks good, then you have capital to trade him for something, rather than losing him for nothing. So I think Fangio is just too concerned about losing his job that he doesn't want to develop a player. Not that he could develop Drew Lock, because he is 100% a defensive coach and has no offensive wisdom whatsoever. But clearly those two quarterbacks are not the ones that they want moving forward. But when you think of the team's future, you would think you would want to showcase a younger guy you can get something more back from than you would Teddy Bridgewater, who not many teams are going to trade, let's say, a second-round draft pick for Teddy Bridgewater. They would for Drew Lock if he has a good season. They're not going to do that for Teddy Bridgewater.
Right. And I do agree. I think Vic Fangio being a defensive guy does play a lot into this, right? Like, it makes sense that he would want to go with Teddy because Teddy's the safer option, right? Like, as a defensive coordinator, he's probably sitting there and thinking like Drew Lock is going to throw a whole bunch of interceptions. That's going to put our defense in terrible positions, right? Like that's just how his mind is going to work. So it makes sense that he probably is going to sit there and be like, you know what? Let's just go with the guy who we know. Yeah, he'll probably only throw like 22 touchdowns this year, but he's not going to throw 15 interceptions. All right, last team in this division. I had to catch myself. The Las Vegas Raiders. There we go. Now, call me crazy. Everyone keeps on telling me, you know, that John Gruden is on the hot seat, even though he signed like a 10-year contract and he's getting paid like $100 million. Good for him. That's scam of the century, really. But
yeah,
John Gruden, let me paint this picture, okay? Because I think everyone keeps on talking about, oh, the Raiders stink and all this other stuff. Just looking at the numbers. Technically, under John Gruden, their record has gotten better every single year he's been there. Is John Gruden rightfully on the hot seat right now?
I don't think he is at this point, and I don't think you could deem him to be on the hot seat because, as you alluded to, the large contract that he signed with the team, you know, he's still well into that contract, so it would be hard to get off of him being the head coach. But I am personally not a big believer on the Raiders. I feel like this team doesn't really know what their philosophy is. I know that they know what kind of players they want. They want fast players. Henry Ruggs is an example. They want guys who fit their system. Yes, that may be true. And they have gotten better over the past couple of seasons that Gruden has been there. But when it comes down to playing meaningful games down the stretch, they're outright terrible. I mean, if you look at their December record, or at least in the past years, it's been horrendous. Seriously. And that's when the games count the most, especially if you're trying to make a playoff push. Last year, we thought that this team was ready to compete for a wild card spot when they beat the Chiefs. And then they just flamed out after that, you know? So I'm not really a big believer on the whole entire team. They have some nice pieces. Yes, Derek Carr is very underrated as a passer, and people don't really give him the respect that he deserves. Josh Jacobs is obviously one of the best running backs in the league, or he is at a top 10 at least at this point. But the defensive line for the Raiders isn't really spectacular. They haven't done anything to address that. They did make a move of signing KJ Wright, who did have a breakout year in his 10th season last year with the Seattle Seahawks. So that's a good piece. But, you know, he's just one guy, right? And I don't really believe that this team is capable of making a wild card push. I feel like they lose track and they lose the winning mentality when it comes down to the stretch of meaningful games in December, whatever it be December or even November for that moment. After Thanksgiving, they pretty much flame out. So I can't put my trust on this team to actually prove me wrong this season. Raiders fans, I'm sorry. I can't believe in the hype. I can't.
And it's funny because that has been their MO. The Raiders have been a team where the first 6 weeks, they look like a contender, right? They'll start off the season 4-2, 5-1, and then 6 weeks later, you'll look up and be like, oh, the Raiders lost like 5 games in a row. Again, is John Gruden rightfully on the hot seat? What is it about this Raiders team that just doesn't click for them? Because they have some talent, even though they whiff in the first like 2 rounds of the draft, but then they kill the draft and like they might be the best franchise when it comes to like getting value at like pick like rounds 4, 5, 6, 7. Like they're really good in those rounds. They just totally whiff on the first 2 rounds. But what is it about this Raiders team that they just can't really put it all together?
Giving up 29.9 points per game is the reason why. Offensively, they were one of the best, at least in the top half of the league, top third of the league, actually, in points scored. They scored just a bit over 27 points per game last season. They threw for 7th in the league, 263 yards per game, top half rushing. The defense continues to let them down. They've got all of the offensive talent in the world. Even though I'm not 100% sold on Derek Carr, you still have Josh Jacobs, Henry Ruggs. You have Hunter Winfrey, who's really good. Darren Waller, who is potentially one of the top 5 tight ends in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But if you're giving up 30 points a game and only scoring 27, you're just not going to win games. That's what it boils down to. They have a new defensive coordinator coming in now. The last one was only there for 2 seasons, and I don't expect, if there isn't a significant improvement, that Gus Bradley is going to last more than 2 seasons, because the defense has just been terrible, and that's what their bugaboo has been the past few seasons. They can't continue to give up as many points as they do.
Yeah, defense obviously has been, because offensively, like I said, like they have pieces. I think Derek Carr is a good quarterback.
Yes.
Does John Gruden think that? We'll find out. He loves guys for a month and then hates them immediately after. So we'll see there. But how do we see this division breaking down? Give me 1, 2, 3, 4. How do you think this division ranks out?
So I'll go Chiefs. I think the Chargers will make the playoffs, so they'll finish second. Denver Broncos, who are not a pushover and shouldn't be a pushover this season, but they will be competitive, but they won't have enough to get the job done when it comes to meaningful games and actually getting the job done and winning those games. They'll come in third. And I actually do think the Raiders finish last. I'm not really too high on the overall team and that aspect. John Gruden, he's not on the hot seat for me at the point, but continuing down the line, when it comes to playing the meaningful games, if he continues to lose these games, he will be on the hot seat. And that it won't be enough for him to save his job. So that's my order.
Yeah, I would go Chiefs 1. I would say Chargers 2. If someone else is playing quarterback for Denver, I would put Denver 2, especially with how great I know that defense is going to be this season. But with the inconsistency at quarterback, I got to put them at 3. And just simply from what I said before, the Raiders' defense is terrible. I can't put them past 4 because I know they're going to probably give up 30 points a game again this season.
Yeah, I think we all have the same rankings here. I believe Chiefs 1, Chargers 2, Broncos 3, Raiders 4. So going from one coast to the other, let's go talk about the AFC East, which I think has some of the best young talent at the quarterback position in every single team now. You have obviously the Buffalo Bills, who really planted themselves as kind of taking that mantle away from the Patriots as the best team in this division. Obviously, you have the New England Patriots, who seem to be back with someone who a lot of people keep on trying to tell me is Mac Jones is the heir apparent to Tom Brady, and they played just the exact same way and all these other things. Then you have the Jets, once again trying to find another quarterback. Sam Darnold's gone. They bring in Zach Wilson. And then you have the Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa. First things first, let's talk about Mac Jones in New England. The New England Patriots released Cam Newton, which I thought was shocking. Not necessarily, like, it wasn't shocking to me that Mac Jones won the job, right? I think, and granted, I love Cam, right? And I hope he falls on his feet somewhere and he gets an opportunity to be a starter. But it was clear during the preseason, Mac Jones absolutely was the best quarterback the Patriots had. Absolutely. And then Cam had his COVID protocol mishap where he basically was away from the team for 5 days. And I'm a firm believer that those 5 days were basically what ended up costing Cam his job, because it basically gave the New England Patriots a week to just sit there and watch Mac Jones play with the ones and play against ones when they were doing their joint practices with the Giants. Are the Patriots making the right decision here, moving on from Cam and basically starting the Mac Jones era?
They are. They definitely are. When it comes to keeping Cam Newton, I thought that would have been a better option, considering the fact that he is an athlete, he's a veteran. He could definitely is more than capable of backing up Mac Jones. And on top of that, he did play in the system last year, has some chemistry with some teammates, has some chemistry with Bill Belichick. So I thought that would have been a great reason to keep him. But make no mistake about it, I do love Mac Jones as a starter. I called this actually, I think week 1 preseason in, where I felt like if Mac Jones were continue that upward trend of playing well and, obviously outplaying Cam Newton, then he would have some sort of a shot at winning the job. Now, I didn't think that would happen, only because I feel like the Patriots wanted to win now, and having Cam Newton, who was a starter last year, wasn't really the best. Numbers were pretty average, but being that Mac Jones was a rookie or is a rookie at the moment, I didn't think that they would go the route, but I always knew that he would be the best fit for the team. The poise in the pocket, the timing on routes, the accuracy. He's pretty much what a Bill Belichick quarterback is supposed to look like and resemble. And I felt like that was the best move possible. Now, going into the season, he's going to have the likes of Brian Hoyer, I believe, backing him up. So we'll see how that goes in the future. And I don't really think that. See, I've heard people say in the past that Patriots are Super Bowl contenders. I just want to stop that narrative right here. Like they're a good contender for the wild card seed, but they have made some great moves this offseason. But I don't really believe that they can do all this with a rookie quarterback at the helm. Mac Jones, he will struggle at times, and people, even though he did have a great preseason, we always forget that he is a rookie quarterback and he is prone to make mistakes because that's the nature of the game, and that's how it will be. They will go through some growing pains, but I do like the direction. I do like the call of starting Mac Jones. He will be one of the great young quarterbacks this next couple of years, and I'm excited to see how he grows in the system.
Keith?
Yeah, I think it was a season too late that, that they released Cam Newton. I didn't think it was a good sign to begin with. I say it every time I watch Cam Newton play. He has been broken ever since Super Bowl 50 when Von Miller put fear in his heart. He had the one good season. I mean, I'm not trying to wish bad on the guy and hope that he doesn't succeed, but outside of the one good season he had, what has he done? It's not like he hasn't been put in good situations when he was with the Panthers. Panthers still had talent. I'd give him a little bit of a pass in regards to the last season because Patriots just stunk last season as a team as a whole, but he just made him look so much worse at times. He's not accurate. He doesn't read defenses very well. He doesn't know whether to run or throw half the time. He just needs someone to help get him back to the basics, and he still could be a good quarterback for some team in his league, but he has a lot of work that he needs to do for that to happen. Is Mac Jones going to be the next Tom Brady? Absolutely not. We may not ever see another Tom Brady. Tom Brady is that caliber of quarterback, but does he put them in a better position to win this season and moving forward, especially if they continue to add some offensive talent? I think he does. I mean, you don't win a national championship at a school like Alabama if you are a bad quarterback. Yes, that Alabama team was supremely talented, but you still have to make the throws, and Mac Jones can make the throws.
Yeah, I thought it was strange that they at least didn't keep Cam as a backup. But I think, again, that was kind of a, hey, you go ahead, try and find your feet somewhere else. Maybe you can get a starting opportunity because we know being a backup isn't really what you want to do here. So that whole situation there is interesting. I'm very interested to see how good this Patriots team is because, and like Greg's saying right here in the comments, they had about 8 opt-outs last year. Cam missed games with COVID, and they still went 7-9. Bill Belichick, last year was one of Bill Belichick's greatest performances as a head coach because any other head coach, I think that team would have won at max 4 games. So now that they have a quarterback that really fits their system, because Cam did not fit their system at all, right? They don't need someone who's going to run around. They don't want someone who's, trying to fling it around. They're fine with, hey, dink and dunks are fine. Check downs are cool. Be accurate. Be smart with the ball. It's not Cam. That is Mac Jones. So it makes sense there. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. The Bills obviously won this division last year. Did the Bills do enough to close that gap? Because I do think it's interesting that we mentioned who's the biggest threat to the Chiefs, and none of us said the Bills, who were the team that faced off against them in the AFC Conference Championship. Granted, that game was not very competitive, and the Chiefs made short work of them. But did the Bills do enough this offseason to close the gap between themselves and the Chiefs?
I don't think so. I mean, like you said, you look at the AFC Championship, and they were thoroughly outplayed by the Chiefs. And you look at their roster, so they have, I mean, Josh Allen, who they just paid a lot of money to. So he's going to have to deal with that pressure and hope he doesn't have a fall off after seeing that big contract, like we often see when people get big contracts. Their running backs, Matt Breida, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss. I mean, they have Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley. Don't get me started on him at a wide receiver. But that is not going to beat the Chiefs. Defensively, they are pretty good, but what it boils down to is you have to be able to score with the Chiefs. They proved they weren't able to score with the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, and they really did not do a whole lot, in my opinion, to improve their position of being able to run with the Chiefs. I don't think they're going to see like a huge fall off. They'll be competitive, but they're not making a step forward this season.
I'm going to have to agree with Keith here. I think that they should definitely. So, they will win the division. That's one thing. The Bills to me are the third best team in the AFC at the moment, considering what has happened to the Ravens with J.K. Dobbins. But what scares me the most about the Bills is, can they be able to contain an offense, an explosive offense, right? And, we saw that last year that they couldn't do with the Chiefs. Now, coming into this season, they should be able to get more pressure from the defensive line. I think that should be a big bonus for them. You look at the offensive side of the ball, you see Josh Allen has been playing lights out, pretty much an MVP caliber season last season. Stephon Diggs is a great addition to them last year. I think an underrated move is Emmanuel Sanders at the moment. I'm not sure how much he's going to contribute to the offense, but, the offense has pieces, right? It has some nice pieces. And you look at all those factors, but I still don't think that they're a better team than the Browns at the moment. They don't really have a great running game that can carry them in moments that will decide the final minutes of a game. But they will be competitive. I will say that. They will be able to give teams like the Browns and the Chiefs a run for their money. When it all comes down to it, though, I'm not picking the Bills to represent the AFC. It's sad for Buffalo Bill fans out there because they're right there, but they can't get over the hump,
Yeah, I think that is my biggest problem with the Buffalo Bills is that can they run the ball, right? Like, as great and as explosive as that offensive was and as good as they were last year, they were terrible, right? Like, they were one of the worst teams when it came to rushing yards per game, and they didn't really do much to address that issue this offseason, right? Like, they didn't really bring in anybody. Like, granted, I know he's having like degenerative knees now, but you could, like, Todd Gurley's out there. You can take a flyer on him. Like, there's things you could have done that I think you could have tried to beef up this run game, and they just kind of didn't, which is very interesting to me. I think the biggest thing for the Bills is that they didn't lose Brian Daboll, right? Like, their offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, he was someone who a lot of people kept on throwing around saying he might get a head coaching job. The fact that he stayed, I think, is huge for them, right? I think that was kind of like an addition from the simple fact that, like, you just kept one of your most important pieces. But I do agree. I don't know if the gap, if anything, I personally feel the gap has widened because I think the Chiefs got much better because their offensive line is going to be amazing. If that offensive line can stay healthy, giving Patrick Mahomes that much time to throw the ball, because hell, guys can't even cover Tyreek Hill for 3 seconds. Imagine trying to cover him for 8. Like, it's not going to work at all.
Not to mention they picked up Jerick McKinnon in the offseason as well.
Right. So this Chiefs offense is going to be ridiculous this year. But we're done talking about the Chiefs. Let's talk about the New York Jets real quick. Obviously, what are you guys' expectations for Zach Wilson and this Jets team this year, right? Because I think quietly they have a really solid. They have two solid pieces on this offensive line, in Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker. I think that they'll be able to protect Zach Wilson. He does not have a lot of talent around him, right? He has Corey Davis. We'll see what else they can muster up. Realistically, though, what are our expectations for Zach Wilson this year with the Jets?
My New York Jets. I love my New York Jets. And, you know, when it comes to Zach Wilson, I actually think that he can resemble sort of the season that Justin Herbert had last year, if I'm being honest. You know, I know that, you just mentioned the talent. I actually like the talent around my team at the moment because I look at the system. I see what Mike LaFleur is implementing, kind of running that Kyle Shanahan offense where we don't need a lead running back to take the snaps. No, we can use a running back committee to get the job done. Don't really need a dominant number one receiver. No, we can use a couple of receivers to get the job done. Corey Davis. I'm really high on Elijah Moore. I think last year's second round pick Denzel Mims will get some much needed reps. That's going to help him increase his confidence. And I just love the biggest factor, aside from the offensive line and, the two building blocks that you just mentioned. I just love Zach Wilson now, how he's looked throughout preseason. And yes, he hasn't played a starting defense yet, but I love his movement. I love his accuracy, pretty much everything that we've seen him and what we've pretty much known about him coming out of BYU. The defense will be much better under Robert Saleh. He's a coach. He's a high energy coach that'll get the most out of players. And, I think we're going in a great direction as a team. So you put all those pieces around Zach Wilson and you say, well, we may not be expected to make a push for the playoffs. Me personally, I don't think we will, but we should be competitive, much more competitive than we were last year. And we should at least make games much more closer. Zach Wilson will struggle at times, but I think overall he'll be much better than we've had from the QB position in the past couple of seasons. And, I'm not really regretting too much on the fact that we passed up on Sam Darnold and giving him away to the Carolina Panthers in favor of Zach Wilson. I think it's a good timeline with coaching, Zach Wilson and Robert Saleh coming in together, and it'll be a good team to watch in a couple of years.
Keith.
I think you can expect to see pretty much everything from Zach Wilson this season. I think there's going to be times where he is going to have or show that super high ceiling that he has because he is a physically gifted and talented quarterback. And there's going to be times where he is going to look terrible, mainly because I think this team is moving in the right direction with who they hired as head coach. But they're going to need better receivers. They're going to need better running backs, and they're going to need a better defense overall if this team wants to get back to contending like they hope to. I think Zach Wilson has the potential to be a great quarterback in this league, but I don't think he is a quarterback who can be transcendent to, let's say, be like Andrew Luck was when he first came into the league and just made that Colts team way better than they were. I don't see Zach Wilson being that. Could he be someone who, if you put a lot of pieces around him, he can be really good and push a team past that little breaking point? I think he can, but the way this Jets team is constructed right now, he's going to put a lot of people in the stands. He's going to sell a lot of jerseys, but I don't think he's going to have that team contending for a playoff spot yet.
Yeah, I think Zach he's gonna have his rookie struggles. I do think though he has that rare arm talent and ability that just where he's just going to be able to do things that other guys can't. And he's going to have those big splash moments where you're going to say, wow, right? Like he's going to have a lot of wow moments. He's also going to have a lot of ooh moments, right? Like, but a lot of those won't be on him. I think a lot of that is going to be on the fact that I think they have a good quarterback now, right? I think they finally have a quarterback who can fit within this system. We'll see what Robert Saleh is as a head coach. But the main thing with the Jets this year, get talent around him, right? You have to build up this team. You look at a lot of the other guys that are, in in his draft class or a lot of other guys that have been drafted recently. The main thing is protect him, get him weapons. I think they've done a pretty good job of protecting him already. Like I said, they have 2 studs on the offensive line in Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker. Now it's a matter of let's get him some weapons to throw the ball to, because he absolutely can make defenses pay because his arm is special. Now, the Miami Dolphins. Oh, Keith, you look like you had something to say.
Oh, no.
Okay. The Miami Dolphins. All righty. I'm someone who I'm a little confused by why Tua has had such a fall from grace with the public and like with media. Like, I felt like when Tua was coming out of Alabama and when he was drafted, everyone was like, oh my God, he's amazing. He's like left-handed Drew Brees. We're going to love him. Like, everyone loved Tua. And then his rookie season played out. Mind you, he did not play bad. He also didn't have the best offensive coordinator, in my opinion. But he did not play bad. Did he light it up? No. Like, was he Justin Herbert? No. But Tua didn't play bad. And I feel like Tua has gone from like everyone's favorite quarterback in that draft to he's a bust already. And I just don't get it. How do we feel about Tua in Miami?
I think it was a matter of expectation. The Dolphins were playing really well when Ryan Fitzpatrick was under center, and they threw him in there kind of with the attitude that they're going to be a lot better when Tua was in there, and he really didn't improve that much. Whether that was Tua not being good, whether he was just not ready to be the starter at the time, whether it was the offensive coordinator. I mean, people can make up their mind on that, but honestly, I don't think he was put in a position last season to really be as good as we think he can be. He didn't make the team look better. Like, I don't think that's all really his fault. I mean, some of the stuff that Ryan Fitzpatrick does is hard to duplicate because I don't even think he knows what he's doing sometimes when he's under center. But it was just the attitude that he came into the season as a person who was going to be the savior for the Dolphins, and they really didn't look that much better. Now that he is for sure the number one guy there, he is getting the backing from the head coach. I mean, they don't have a bad team. They don't have a running back who's going to blow your socks off. I think their starter is Myles Gaskin, I think. Mm-hmm. They have a really good tight end who has potential to be great. Will Fuller, I don't think he's starting to see. I think he's suspended. Yeah. So, I mean, they're already starting the season a little bit backwards from they did the season before, but he just has to be given the proper opportunity, I think. He just was not put in a good situation last season. He was put in a bad light the way they thrust him into the starting position. Really, it's just a PR issue, and he's got to make that up somehow.
Yeah, and I feel like I think Brian Flores is a great head coach. However, I think that the way they handled the Fitzpatrick and Tua situation was terrible. I felt like they threw Tua in there when they absolutely did not need to, right? I think Tua wasn't 100% healthy coming back from that hip injury. And because the team was playing so well, there was an expectation, like you said, that, okay, well, if you're bringing Tua in, you all must be telling us he's going to be better than what Ryan Fitzpatrick has been giving us all season. And Ryan Fitzpatrick had us in playoff contention. And when that didn't happen, there were some real doubts that started to creep in with not just the fans, but within the organization. And then obviously you have all the talks about, hey, maybe the Dolphins will trade away Tua to get Deshaun Watson if he becomes available. I feel like a lot of the doubt around Tua was self-inflicted because of the way the Dolphins handled that situation. And I feel like if they would have, because that's really my only knock on Brian Flores right now. Brian Flores, I think, is going to be a great head coach. I think he's already shown he's a great motivator. He's great with personnel. I just think that was the one thing that he messed up on last year. And hopefully Tua shows that, they can fix it and that Tua is the guy moving forward, because I believe in Tua. I think Tua is going to be a very good quarterback moving forward. But how do we see this division ranking out?
So I'm going to go Buffalo Bills first. They will be the division winners. Yes, the Patriots will finish second. They spent a lot of money in free agency, a lot of guaranteed money to their free agents. So I do expect them to make at least a wild card push for the playoffs. It's kind of a toss-up for me. I'm going to go with the Dolphins for number 3, only because of what they did last season, 10-6 season. Even though they have the half bets odds this season, as in like they come in pretty much the average spot in the AFC this year, which is very surprising considering that they were a winning team last year and they were on the fringe of making the playoffs. But yes, I do believe in Tua as well too, and I do expect him to become a good quarterback in the future. And obviously, I run it out with the New York Jets, not really ready to win at the moment, but things should be much more interesting come this season. Should be a lot much more meaningful games. We get to see Zach Wilson play and see how he will develop during his time with the New York Jets. So it should be fun to watch this year. It's a lot of the young QBs.
Ooh, I'm gonna catch hell for this. I got the Patriots winning the division.
Oh,
I don't know what it is about this team this season, but I think they're going to shock a lot of people. I think Mac Jones is going to play with a huge chip on his shoulder, and he is going to lead them to that division just a little over the Bills, because the Bills are still a great team. But I think you give Bill Belichick a quarterback like Mac Jones, and he will look a lot better than he did last season, especially with all the people that they have coming back off of the COVID opt-outs. So obviously I think the Patriots won. I got the Bills that are very, very, very close to. And then I think you got the Dolphins and then the Jets. The Jets just aren't ready to compete just yet. They're heading on the right track, but they're the odd man out in that division for sure.
Okay, so I think we all have a little bit. I think the only thing that we all agree on is that the Jets will be the worst team in this division. I have the Bills number 1. I have the Dolphins second in this division.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know what it is about this team. I love this Miami Dolphins team. I think that they added some good weapons. Granted, Will Fuller will be suspended. They went out there. They got Jalen Waddle. I just like what this team is doing. I, again, would have liked to have seen them address the running back position a little bit more. But I'm a big believer that Tua is going to take that step, and the Dolphins will finish second in this division. The Patriots, I like that they're getting everyone back. Mac Jones absolutely fits this offense much better than Cam did. However, Mac Jones is still a rookie, and I feel like he will have those rookie mistakes, and it's going to be that little bit of a feeling out process and just getting used to the NFL. So that's the only thing that I think holds the Patriots back this year. So I have the Patriots finishing third, and then, of course, the Jets are at fourth just because there's such a void of talent on this team. The Jets just aren't in a position to compete right now. Okay. We're already over an hour, so let's go ahead and try and speed this up. AFC South. I'm not the biggest believer in the Tennessee Titans, mainly because that defense was terrible last year. And also Ryan Tannehill, for as well as he's played, I just still don't fully believe in him, right? I still believe that this team, if you can stop Derrick Henry, you're going to win. Because whenever the Titans have to put a game solely on Ryan Tannehill's arm, it does not go well. How do we feel about the Titans this year?
I have them winning the division. I mean, it's a 2-team division. You can take the Jaguars out. You can take the Texans out. It's really just going to be down between the Titans and the Colts. If Carson Wentz can stay healthy, and I put a huge if on that, I think I don't think he is that dude, but for some reason he just keeps winning. So I mean, what else? I don't know what else to say about the guy. He wins when they need him to win. They went and got him another receiver to go along with A.J. Brown. It's always if you can stop Derrick Henry, and no one's really been able to truly stop Derrick Henry, and that's going to get a lot harder when you add another receiver to the mix with A.J. Brown. I think they got better enough that they can win the division even with the addition of a Carson Wentz in Indianapolis.
I agree. I definitely agree. The Tennessee Titans are going to be the division winners for me. They did improve the defense in some aspects. I really, really like the first round pick, Caleb Farley, even though he may not be ready, has had injury problems in the past. But, if he does come along, if he does stay healthy, he should definitely have the potential to be a top in the years to come. And I look at the offseason move. The biggest thing for me did not come on the defense side, but it came with trading for Julio Jones. That was a great thing. You have two number one receivers who command respect from the defenses, and you have the likes of your trio headed monster with those two guys, and obviously Derrick Henry in the fold. I predict that he will definitely be the league's leading rusher this upcoming season. And I really do love Ryan Tannehill at the quarterback position, not really a running back, but he is very underrated. He's a guy who gets the job done, and I think he's much more than a game manager. People have to put that narrative on him, and he may have managed game in the past, but look at his last season's stats. 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, I believe. Had a great completion rate. He gets the job done. He gets enough of the job done to win games, and that's what they need right now. So, they have some good pieces. Defense scares me a little bit, but it should be much better than it was last season. I think it should be just enough to get over the hump in terms of winning the division and overcoming the Indianapolis Colts. Like you said, you pretty much it's a two-team race. For that matter, you can scrap the Jaguars, you can scrap the Texans, but in the end, I think it'll be the Tennessee Titans winning the division.
Okay, so I guess I'm the lone guy on this one. Yeah, I'm not. Again, that defense was terrible last year. Now, granted, I do think Mike Vrabel will figure that out. I don't think that defense will be as bad as they were last year, but I think they will be a good team. I want to make that very clear. I think the Titans will be a good team. But like Keith said, if Carson Wentz is healthy, I don't see the Titans being better than Indianapolis. Again, I know Ryan Tannehill has played very, very good since becoming the starter in Tennessee. I don't know. Maybe it is just because I still think of the Ryan Tannehill that was in Miami that couldn't really get it done. Now, granted, Adam Gase was his head coach, so we don't need to say much about that. So yeah. maybe I am still punishing him for his past transgressions, but I don't know. I can't fully commit to Ryan Tannehill being a guy that can really take you to the next level. We've talked enough about the Colts today. I think we've spoke about the main thing there. The main thing with the Colts is health. If Carson Wentz is healthy, I think even if he doesn't look like the MVP guy from a couple years ago, if he's just steady, cut down on the interceptions and just stay healthy, I think the Colts will be fine. I think we all agree there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I just don't think he's going to be healthy.
Yes. Right. It's a big if. It's a big if. But if Carson Wentz is healthy, we all believe the Colts will contend for this division, and they'll definitely push the Titans. Let's talk about the dregs of this division. The Houston Texans. I personally don't think the Texans are going to be as bad as people think they will be. You look at specifically on the offensive side of the ball, they still have good talent. They might have the best running back room in the NFL with David Johnson, Philip Lindsay. They've got really good talent there, right? And they also have some guys on the outside. You got Brandon Cooks. There's talent. Kiki Kuti is still there. There's talent on this Houston Texans team. And Tyrod Taylor, similar to a Teddy Bridgewater, game manager, isn't going to win you a whole bunch of games, but he's definitely not going to lose you games. are the Texans maybe a little bit better than we're giving them credit for?
I don't think their issue is talent. You can be a really talented team, but the problem with the Texans is that they have so much dysfunction with Deshaun Watson still being on that roster but not playing. Like, either trade him or release him. As long as that Deshaun Watson collar is around that team, they are not going to be able to move forward. So they either need to move forward with him or get rid of him. And at this point, he's not holding the team back because he's a bad player. He's holding the team back because he is a huge distraction that they just, I don't know if they refuse to address it. They can address it, but they're not addressing it by just leaving him on the roster and not playing him.
Yeah, Texans for me will be one of the worst league in this upcoming season, obviously. A very interesting point you make. They do have a nice running back committee: Mark Ingram, Philip Lindsay, David Johnson, and they also obviously do have the tackle Larry Tunsil as well too. But I just look at this whole team, this whole roster, is the oldest roster in the NFL, I believe, at the moment, and them having experience that won't get it done this season. This team will definitely be competing for a spot to draft first overall for who I believe will be Spencer Rattler from the Oklahoma Sooners, and get him and start over fresh next season. Like Keith said, it's too much of a distraction to have Watson on the team at the moment. Is he going to play? Is he going to make the 53-man roster? Will he be suited up on Sundays? If not, he's going to be healthy scratch. So many questions surrounding that I feel like once that is solved, then they'll be able to start rebuilding fresh. But as of right now, Deshaun Watson on the team, it's too much of a distraction, and we see that there's so much dysfunction going on that you really can't pin them to win any game for that matter. Maybe twice against the Jaguars because that's the level of competition. But outside of those two games, I don't really pin them to win any game for that matter. So it will be a tough season for Texans fans. It will be a tough season for the whole team. Like you said before, Tyrod Taylor can get the job done. Even though he does give them the best chance to win, and he's not a guy who loses a lot of games, he will lose a lot of games this season. Like, let's not get that twisted. He won't have pretty much any shot of giving this team hope of winning games outside of the Jaguars game. So it's going to be a really hard season.
Yeah. The Deshaun Watson situation is obviously the biggest thing with this team, right? I mean, it's the single story that I feel like every team is looking at, because what happens with Deshaun Watson as far as all his legal stuff that goes on off the field, what happens there really can shift the dynamic of power in the NFL because of how great of a player Deshaun Watson is, right? Like, I'm a firm believer he's one of the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL, and a guy of his stature possibly moving is huge. So obviously that's something to keep our eye on. I think that maybe we're a little too down on the Texans just from a standpoint. I think they're going to win more games than people suspect. How many? I'm not confident enough to give a number. But what I am confident about is the Jacksonville Jaguars and Urban Meyer will not work. So I want to ask you guys, over under 3 years before Urban Meyer is fired?
I think 1 year before he quits.
Very true. Very true. I would say under 3 years he gets fired. I don't think it's going to work, to be honest. I think that this year will be a testament as to how much they will struggle on offense. You already lost Travis Etienne, and obviously you have Trevor Lawrence. He is a generational talent, he is expected to be a generational talent. We don't really know until he's good. I just look at the offense. The offensive line is terrible at the moment. They're going to struggle to score points. They're going to struggle to stop anybody for that matter. Once again, their 2 only wins may come from the likes of the Texans this season. So Urban Meyer, I don't think it'll work. He's a college coach, a great college coach. Don't get me wrong. But as far as his level for the NFL, I'm not too sure if he's going to be able to elevate this Jaguar squad. It's too much dysfunction around the team. And they need much more of a 3-year process to get back to the days of Saxonville in 2017, where they had Blake Bortles leading to a championship game. They're far off from that point. So Urban Meyer, it may not work out within the time that he's expected to.
Yeah, I was not a fan when Urban Meyer got hired. I thought that it was a bad move. And granted, I understand why Urban Meyer took this job. Like, Urban Meyer came out of retirement because he wants to coach Trevor Lawrence, which makes sense. But there's two things that really scare me about this Jaguars team and why I think that they are going to struggle. I think that, and I'm knocking on wood, we won't see a situation like last year with Joe Burrow where they just threw him out there and was just like, yeah, our offensive line sucks, but hey, you'll be able to make it work. And then he tore his ACL like 6 weeks into the season.
And they did that this year too.
Right. So I hope that they don't do that with Trevor Lawrence. I hope that they find a way to protect him, but it doesn't look like they can. And we've seen that in the preseason. This offensive line continuously gets beat. Trevor is going to take a lot of hits this year. We're going to see how tough Trevor Lawrence is this year. So the offensive line is a big concern. The next big concern for me is this defense, specifically the secondary. They made a New Orleans Saints team with, granted, Jameis Winston is talented, but with no real wide receiver threats, absolutely dice them in a preseason game. And granted, it's preseason, but that was ones. Those were ones that were playing. And your secondary looked terrible, okay? That is a big concern for me. I don't think this defense is going to be able to stop anybody, and I don't think they're going to be able to protect Trevor Lawrence. I think the Jaguars are in for a very, very rough season, and I'm 97% sure they'll end up having the number 1 overall pick again this upcoming year.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think Urban Meyer was hired to be a coach that's going to take them to the future. Honestly, I feel like they hired him because they knew it was a possibility they could get Trevor Lawrence. Who better than to help transition Trevor Lawrence from college football to the NFL than a college coach? If he wants to take the next step and be the potential great that everyone thinks he will be, he's going to need a coach outside of Urban Meyer to do that. But if you want to cushion the blow, there's not very many people better to do that than Urban Meyer. But I don't expect him to be there long. They have a lot of work to do. It's just not going to be pretty. They have to be the favorite to go 0-17 this season.
Yeah, I struggle to see where they will win games this year. Real quick, Edwin, give us your division or your breakdown for how the division goes.
All right, so this is kind of tentative only because we have to monitor the situation of Carson Wentz. If he is healthy, I will say the Colts will finish atop the division. If not, I'm going to go with the Titans. I don't expect them to be healthy, so I'm going with the Titans right now. So Titans, Colts. I'll go the Texans. Actually, no, I'll go the Jaguars, even though I don't really believe in the Texans at all, to be honest. Despite the Jaguars having so much dysfunction around the team and the organization. I mean, Urban Meyer just asking Tim Tebow to come and try out as a tight end. He's never played a position before, and that was just a testament as to how bad the team is run. So Texans will have the number 1 pick, in my opinion, and they will be drafting first Spencer Rattler. Go Sooners.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the Titans just because I don't trust the health of Carson Wentz. Even still, the Colts will still finish second in the division. And then a long distant third is the Texans, and even further than that, and fourth is the Jaguars.
I'll be the one to walk the plank of belief. I believe Carson Wentz will stay healthy. Give me the Colts 1, Titans 2, Texans 3, Jaguars 4. All right. Last division before we get out of here. Quite possibly the best division in the AFC. I feel like it is, and I feel like it's the second best division in all of football. That is the AFC North. obviously we talked about the Cleveland Browns. Do we believe the Cleveland Browns are ready to take that step and be a real contender, right? Like last year, they caught people by surprise. Now it's like, no, we know you guys are good. Are they ready for that pressure? Will they be able to live up to expectations this year?
I think they are. I think they will actually overcome those expectations. And it's really tough to put your money on the Cleveland Browns at this point because of what they've done in the past. I mean, Baker's second year, when he accumulated our OBJ and Jarvis Landry, we thought that would be the year that they would take the step. They actually regressed. And then last year, they actually played really well, but then we questioned how they would perform in the playoffs, and they actually did a great job in dismantling the Steelers. This season, they have strengthened their squad immensely, in my opinion. Very well balanced. They should be able to overtake the Steelers from last year and win the division this year. It'll be a tough team to overcome, if I'm being honest, at this point. If Baker Mayfield plays well, which I expect him to play well and get a contract extension in the future, the Browns will be really hard to beat, especially with the fact that the Ravens don't really have a sure running game that they did have last year with J.K. Dobbins being out, and also the issue of the Steelers not really having. To me, they're frauds. We'll get to the Steelers later, but the Steelers were frauds last year, and I think it's much different this season. The Browns are the best team in the division. No question about it.
Keith?
I mean, really a blessing in disguise for the Browns last season is that OBJ didn't miss that much time. We kind of saw it when Dak first came into the league and Dez Bryant was there. There was very much a forcing of the ball from Dak to Dez Bryant. And I think we saw that in Cleveland, that they had to force the ball from Baker to OBJ. So when he missed that time last season, it allowed Baker to not only did the running game really help him, I think that's the key to this team is having a good running game, but when he's not trying to force the ball into one receiver, he becomes a lot better quarterback. So now that he has that relationship with the other receivers, you won't have to force the ball to Beckham as much, and that helps Beckham as well because the receivers did step up last season he was out. So I think bringing him back in this season is going to make them that much of a better team. And as long as what is going to be the key for the Browns is if they don't need just one running back healthy, they need both of those running backs to be healthy to be able to just run that ground and pound game to get Baker to be where he is best, which is in that play action pass. If those running backs stay healthy, I don't see any reason why you would think they're going to miss any significant time. Then it's the Browns' division to lose.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I'm a Steeler fan. However, I try and keep my biases to a minimum. This Cleveland Browns team scares me. They are stacked on both sides of the ball. I think their defense doesn't get enough credit for how much talent that they have. I think a lot of people forget that Greedy Williams, like they had some guys miss time. Like Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit didn't play last year, which I think played a huge part into their secondary not being up to snuff. You obviously have Myles Garrett, who is one of, if not the best edge rusher in the league, top 3. You obviously add Jadeveon Clowney, who adds, granted, he's not a great pass rusher from the edge, but he's great as a run stopper and getting pressure up the middle. This Browns team is set. Like it is Cleveland's time. I believe they'll live up to expectations this year. I think Baker will also solidify the fact that he is the franchise quarterback for this team, and he will play well, and he'll get a pretty lucrative contract at the end of this year because I believe the Browns are going to win this division. Now let's talk about the other team that a lot of people are putting in contention for winning the division. That's the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, however, have been dealing with quite a lot of injury. Like they've had a lot of setbacks. First and foremost, I think that the Ravens went all in on trying to get some number 1 wide receivers. They really took some big swings trying to get guys in here, and they walked away with Sammy Watkins. So no disrespect to Sammy, but Sammy's a number 2, and that's kind of been the routine in Baltimore. They went out and drafted Rashad Bateman, who I think is going to be a good wide receiver, but he's banged up. Losing J.K. Dobbins is huge for this team moving forward. Will the Ravens be able to overcome all of this adversity? Because it seems like they're a little snake bitten before the season even starts.
Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, so it really is tough for Ravens fans. I really feel for them. I thought that with the expected results that J.K. Dobbins would produce for the season this year, that the Ravens would be a team to be reckoned with in terms of competing and contention for the AFC. But with that injury concern happening, and also another injury with Justice Hill tearing his ACL, who's expected to fill in for some of the snaps that they lost or that they would lose with J.K. Dobbins, they're really thin at running back, and I can see Greg Roman tailoring an offense where he's going to rely more so on Lamar Jackson to get the job done. Yes, they gave the good contract to Mark Andrews, but he's just a part of a piece that makes this offense go, and contributed to them having a league title rushing for the NFL last year. But it wouldn't be the same this year. Defense looks kind of scary once again. You tied down Marlon Humphrey. You have Marcus Peters, and what really scares me the most about this Ravens team is the fact that they can't get pressure unless they find ways to blitz, which is a problem because you have so many great quarterbacks in the AFC at the moment. If you can't find a way to get consistent pressure without the use of blitzing on so many plays, then that'll be an issue because they'll carve you up just like that. This team will be good enough to make the playoffs. Definitely good enough to contend for the division, but when it comes to making a deep playoff push, I don't really see that happening. And it sucks to say that because I thought that J.K. Dobbins would be an X factor coming into his sophomore season. He was really great last year, but it wouldn't be the same case this year. You have to rely on Gus Edwards, who I'm not really too keen on as the more so explosive back, and they're just really thin at some positions.
Yeah, I mean, at first I thought Sammy Watkins was actually a good signing for the Ravens just because they don't really need a Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams or some of those top-tier receivers. They need receivers who can catch the ball when they're wide open because teams are focused so much on the run. And that just goes completely out of the window when you lose Dobbins and Justice Hill. Now they can just load the box against Lamar Jackson, cut off his escape routes, and it really wouldn't matter what receiver they brought in. They're not going to have time to throw the ball. They're not going to have space. I mean, they'll have space because they're going to be putting cornerbacks on an island against those receivers because they're not going to be concerned about those receivers. All they're going to be focused on is shutting down Lamar Jackson, and that becomes much easier when there's no one capable of running the ball besides him. So I think, like Greg said, they did bring in Le'Veon Bell. I don't think that's going to make that much of a difference. A, because I think his time is over. B, he can't really stay healthy half the time either. It's going to be a long season for the Ravens. They looked really good when the season started, but their season just fell off the wagons with all those injuries.
Yeah, I think, like I said, they were kind of snake bitten before the season even got off. And I think it's going to be a long season for the Ravens. Granted, I think Lamar Jackson is special enough to overcome a lot of the adversity that they will face. And I do think the Ravens will still be a very good team this year. But with no J.K. Dobbins, Rashad Bateman already being injured, we'll see. And Sammy Watkins is another guy who he has had a history of being injured. It's going to be tough. Now, this team is going to have to win with defense. And Edwin, you talked about, they blitz a lot. One of the reasons that they blitz a lot, though, is because they are great in man coverage, and they believe their corners can lock down any wide receiver group. So we'll see how they feel about it moving forward. But I definitely think the Ravens are in for a tough, really, really tough season this upcoming year. They will be tested. let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals added a lot of weapons on the defensive side of the ball. And I actually like a lot of the signings that they made. They took Mike Hilton from my Steelers, which hurts a lot. But one of the things that they opted not to do, they had an opportunity to draft Penei Sewell, who I felt like is going to be a day one starter and will probably be an all-pro every year for the rest of his year and probably end up in the Hall of Fame at one point. Like, that's how high I am on Penei Sewell. They passed up on him to get Jamar Chase. And granted, I understand Jamar Chase is special, right? Jamar Chase, I keep reminding people all the time, Jamar Chase was the best player on an LSU team that had Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was the best player on that team. So he is special. However, are the Cincinnati Bengals not just rerunning the exact same thing they did last year? Of like, they had weapons last year. You have weapons now. Can you protect Joe Burrow?
No.
That is the biggest question. You can't.
I mean, they can get all the weapons in the world, but if they don't have time to find those weapons, it doesn't mean anything. And they did next to nothing to address the reason why Joe Burrow got hurt last year. It's because they couldn't protect him. And that doesn't change. So by default, they're not going to win games because they're not going to be able to stay on the field to be able to score points because they just don't have the offensive line to support. I mean, they might get a big play every now and then, but consistent offense, they're not going to have that because they don't have an offensive line to support a consistent offense.
Definitely agree with Keith here. I just feel like the Bengals went totally wrong direction when it came to finding ways to build around Joe Burrow. You look at Jamar Chase, and yes, we just raved about how great he was on LSU. But they do have a receiver, T. Higgins, who they drafted last year, and he played, okay. He was a rookie. He was expected to have a much better season. But when it comes to building around your rookie quarterback, I feel like the best thing to do, at least in the beginning, is to start in the trenches. And this is one of the reasons why I love the way that Joe Douglas, Jets general manager, is doing for Zach Wilson. He's finding guys up front to protect your quarterback. Now, we just witnessed last season Joe Burrow getting injured from ACL tear because he couldn't get protected. And you had a chance to draft Penei Sewell, who we once again rave about him being an all-pro talent, a guy who's going to be a stud and a building block for years to come. Well, why didn't you go draft him in the first place? I don't feel like just drafting Jamar Chase was the more so flashy move, which is not what they need at the moment. It's not what they need to progress the development of Joe Burrow. He needs much more than that. He needs a competent offensive line in front of him, and they didn't do that. As far as the whole team is concerned, it will be much better. They should be much more fun to watch, but it's pretty much the same situation as last season. And if they can't find a way to protect Joe Burrow, who hasn't played that much preseason, I don't think he's played at all, if I'm remembering. But he hasn't taken too many hits. You don't want him to take too many hits because of what you have to put in front of him, and they haven't done the good job of doing that. So the Bengals, is looking like it's going to be a long season for them again this year.
Yeah, the offensive line is the single most important unit in football, right? If you can't win in the trenches, if your offensive line is terrible, it doesn't matter who you have at quarterback. It doesn't matter how good your running back is. It doesn't matter. You can have Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, and Terrell Owens as your wide receivers. If your offensive line sucks, it doesn't matter. And that's something that I feel like the Bengals are missing. So we'll see. Like I said, I do think this team will be improved. Like I said, I think their defense, they added some really good pieces there. And even though Jamar Chase has struggled in the preseason, he's had a ton of drops. I think that's jitters, just getting used to the NFL. I think he'll be able to turn it around. Like I said, he's extremely talented. But we'll see what happens with the Cincinnati Bengals. Lastly, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers, there's been a lot of talk about the Steelers. Is their offense going to be good enough? Can Ben still sling it? You know, they drafted a running back in the first round. All of these things. And the Steelers really are kind of the outlier in this division because they're the only ones who don't really have a young quarterback in place, right? Like Dwayne Haskins might get a chance to prove he can be the future of this franchise. We don't know. But you look at everyone else. You have Joe Burrow. You have Lamar Jackson, right? You have Baker Mayfield. It seems like a lot of people are writing off the Steelers. How are we feeling about the Steelers? Do we feel like the swan song is kind of ending for Ben? Or is this really like the last dance type deal? Is this going to be Ben's last chance to really go out and shock everybody? What do we realistically see for the Steelers this year?
I mean, they have the weapons. I mean, they drafted Najee Harris. They still have Deontay Johnson. They have Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool. They're definitely going to be competitive. It's just a matter of how much does Ben have left in the tank. I mean, he looks really good coming into camp. He shed a bunch of weight. But it does seem like this could be the last chance that he has to chase another Super Bowl. Honestly, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl on the back of Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins. So if they are going to win the Super Bowl, they're going to need to do it on the back of Ben Roethlisberger. It's just, what does he have left? Is he going to be able to do that still? And that's the big question. They're not going to be a terrible team by any means because they have so many offensive weapons. They have a very stout defense, especially with T.J. Watt coming back. It's just going to be how far can Ben Roethlisberger get them? And I think that's a question that we're just going to have to see answered because they looked great last season. They were undefeated for so long, but when it came down to crunch time, they were terrible. A lot of that had to do with injuries on defense, but a lot of that had to do with Ben Roethlisberger not looking good either. So we'll just have to see what he has left in the tank.
Definitely agree with that. They will be competitive. When it came to last year, I thought that they're winning. Their recipe for winning wasn't really what I thought would sustain them in the long term, right? Big Ben, he looked okay through the first 11 games. Defense was ferocious, and it's expected to be ferocious once again this upcoming season. But as Keith just mentioned, the injuries came, and people really found them out. Like they were able to figure out how to beat this team, in my opinion, with ease. And coming into this season, they will be similar to what they were last year. Maybe not 11 games straight out the gate, just undefeated. I won't say that. I'm actually going to stay here and make a bold prediction that they probably won't make the playoffs this season with just how great the AFC is stacking up to be this upcoming year. And as well as the fact that I don't really believe that drafting Najee Harris will solve the the rushing game issue, because he doesn't have an offensive line in front of him. We just talked about how important a line is for your quarterback, and how important it could be for the rushing game as well too. But the Steelers have about so many new faces on that offensive line that it's going to be a really big question mark to see how they will mesh this upcoming season, and that's what scares me the most. So if they can't get that sorted out, then I think that drafting Najee Harris would have been really nothing, at least for this season, because he won't have any running lanes to do so. But I do like the crop of receivers that they do have. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool is a stud at wide receiver. And it also comes down to, like he said, how much does Big Ben have in the tank? Having him drop back 40 times a game and slinging the ball out is not really the best way that I think the Steelers can win games. I think it'll be through their defense, but they will be the odd team out in the AFC, not just the division, the AFC. They'll be the odd team out. It'll be a question to see whether or not Mike Tomlin has his first losing season in a long time. It's definitely on the cards, on the table. But I don't see this team making the playoffs this season.
All right. Alrighty. So let me educate you guys. And as Greg said, writing off the Steelers is always a big mistake. But in all seriousness, I think the biggest thing for the Steelers this year is, one, Randy Finkner is no longer calling plays because, and I do not like to talk, I don't like to be this harsh on people. Randy Finkner wasn't even capable, like he isn't even worthy of calling plays for a JV high school football team. So he was absolutely terrible. And he's been terrible the last 2 years that he's been the offensive coordinator. He's gone. Matt Canada's here. And Matt Canada is going to do a couple things that Randy never did. He's going to have Ben under center. He's going to use motion, and he's going to run the ball. He's also not going to have Ben stepping back and throwing slants and running back screens every single play. This offense will look different. Now, the main thing, same thing that we spoke about with the Cincinnati Bengals. Will the Steelers' offensive line be better? They were damn near terrible last year, so you have to think they can only get better. You can only go up from here, right? Granted, the thing that scares me about this offensive line is that you're starting 2 rookies, and you only have 1 guy returning from that offensive line last year. So it's a this offensive line is completely new. And that's going to be the determining factor of whether or not the Steelers go like 11-6 this year, or if they end up going 7-10, right? I want to believe in this offensive line. And if this offensive line plays well, I think Najee Harris will play well. I think Najee Harris has a great chance to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I think Ben has just enough left, especially if we can run the ball, to win meaningful games and get us into the postseason. Again, it's all determined upon what happens with this offensive line. I believe in Mike Tomlin as a head coach. I believe in him as a leader. Again, a guy who's never had a losing season. I don't think it happens this year. Also, they still have to get TJ Watt's contract situation figured out. I'm sure that will get done in a couple of days, even though the Steelers have held strong to this idea of we don't talk contracts during the season. You know, we do contracts during the offseason and all this other stuff. We'll see how all of that goes. But for everyone that's plotting on the Steelers' downfall this year, let's hold off. Let's hold off, okay? Okay. All righty. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Thank you all for watching this Nuts and Bolts Sports Special Edition AFC preview. Again, make sure that you all check out tomorrow, No Huddle Necessary at 8 p.m. Myself and Keith will be on. And, of course, you will be able to see the NFC preview show right after that at 9 o'clock. So, yes, thank you all so much. Edwin, Keith, you guys were awesome tonight. Edwin, go ahead and let the people know where they can find you at on socials.
So you guys can follow me on Twitter at TheRealEddie03. That's Eddie with 2 D, so EDDIE03. Post some sports content on there, tweet here and there, like a couple posts. We could talk about anything you guys would want, as well as I do write for Nuts and Bolts Sports as well too. So we have a great cast of writers who do great work. You know, when it comes to reading the articles, it's phenomenal, as well as producing content, whether it be a podcast or a video format. It's all great. So continue to support us all, and hope to be back on soon.
All righty, Keith, where can people find you?
At 5280 Keith on Twitter is where I mainly live, especially on football Sundays. We have a big thread that we do every Sunday. A lot of sarcasm, a lot of trash talk. So looking forward to football being back.
All righty. And, of course, you all can find me on Twitter at Dom, the Sports Guy. Thank you all so much for watching, and join us next time. Like I said, big shows tomorrow. Thank you all so much. We'll see you. Peace.
Peace.